What's going on, guys? Today we're going to be talking about the glutes, and more specifically we're going to be talking about a couple of very popular glute exercises that are probably not as effective as you think they are. And now, before we dive into the exercises featured in this video, I want to make it incredibly clear. The exercises that we are calling not as effective in the context of this video, I am not labeling as bad, I am not labeling as stupid. I don't want to make anyone feel polarized if they have been doing these thinking that they're great for glutes, because a lot of misconception goes on within the fitness world, and it's part of the growing process. And within every context, no exercise is necessarily unwarranted or bad. So please note that while we go through this video, I am not demonizing any exercise. And honestly, if you ever want to perform any of the exercises that are labeled not as effective in this video, proceed and go forth, because who am I to say? If you like doing it and you enjoy it and you think it works, go for it. But I will show you a couple of exercise variations that are likely a bit more effective for glute gains. I do want to give a little bit of context into some basic glute anatomy, along with some concepts to think about to be a bit more strategic with your exercise selection when targeting the glutes. So when it comes to glute training, generally you're going to be talking about the glute maximus and the glute medius. The glute maximus's main role is extension at the hip. The glute medius is going to play a role in pelvis stability. When it's contracted as a whole, it's going to abduct the thigh, and the anterior fibers internally rotate the thigh. Now, when it comes to concepts for targeting these muscles a bit more strategically, two things I want you to think about. Number one is look at a basic muscular picture of the glutes and look at how the muscular fibers actually orient, because we can be a bit more strategic with the angles and our setups if we understand how the muscle fibers physically orient. And this can help us then bleed into better exercise selection based on how that muscle is going to physically contract. Another thing to think about is how you are loading exercises. Are you getting the most bang for your buck through various ranges of motion, or are you just kind of going through the motions with your exercises and getting maybe like 10, 20, maybe 30% of the work that you could be getting with a bit more strategic loading and a setup? So those are a couple things to think about as we go through this video. Plus, those are things that help me decide what we should swap out and swap in for ineffective and effective glute exercises. And now, with all that being said, let's go ahead and dive into the first not as effective glute exercise as you probably think, the banded lateral walk. And we have seen this all over social media. And I think with this exercise specifically, there's a misconception going on when it comes to sensation equaling stimulation and then adaptation. This exercise feels good, we get a nice little burn, and I think a lot of times we equate that to it being really effective. But what are we actually training with it? One, we're not hitting the glute max, we're not moving into meaningful hip extension, and when it comes to abduction of the thigh, targeting the glute medius, we're not even really going through a full range of motion with this exercise. So a lot of times we're getting a nice burn, but it's not probably as effective for building the glutes as you think. And now, don't get me wrong, if you want to keep performing this and it feels good, or use it for prep work, keep doing it, but try these instead if you are trying to build bigger glutes and more bodacious glutes, and you've been doing lateral banded walks and spending a lot of time doing them. So 3 exercises you can try instead of the lateral banded walk if we're trying to target the glute medius is number 1, a supported single leg RDL with a contralateral load. This is a phenomenal exercise because the contralateral load is going to require a great demand of stability from that glute on that grounded leg. Plus we have a support, so we can really focus on our tempo and nailing our mechanics with this exercise, because I think a lot of times when people try to do single leg RDLs, they rush through them and they don't really get as much bang for their buck with them. So by adding a little bit of a contralateral load and the support, we get a lot of constraints to really scale this movement to make it as effective as possible. The second exercise you can try is a single leg supported squat. Now, I say squat here, but I want you to focus on slowing down this movement and really focusing on what the hips and knees are doing. With the support, we can really focus on altering our mechanics to get the most bang for our buck when it comes to glute activity. And if we want to be a little bit more hip dominant, it's pretty easy to do so with the level of support. So if you want to try this out, it's a good warm-up exercise. You can also scale it with a contralateral load. And I would say ease into it and feel out the mechanics for what works best for you. The third exercise is the seated abduction machine. I generally will program this towards the end of workouts, and also my coach has me doing them now, and these will blow up your glute meads as well. So those are 3 exercises that you can try as opposed to the lateral banded walk if you're trying to target the glute medius a bit more effectively. The second exercise is the body weight glute bridge. Now, as a prep exercise or as a means for anybody who's training at home who has no equipment, this movement is okay, and I'm not really bashing it. But if your goal is glute hypertrophy and building out the fullness and size of your glutes, what I would recommend instead is doing a traditional loaded glute bridge, and more so on a bench. So you get a little bit more range of motion. Plus, I think it's a bit more comfortable to do because when we think about the resistance of this movement, when we're on a bodyweight glute bridge, we're gonna have an angle in our posture. So at that peak contraction where we're shortening the glutes to their fullest extent, that load is never gonna be really fully sitting over the glutes on a horizontal plane. It's always gonna be diagonal. By adapting a glute bridge on a bench or a box, you're gonna be able to load the glutes through a horizontal plane and get a much more meaningful contraction in their contracted and shortened position. If you are swapping this in for a bodyweight glute bridge, start with a lighter load and add a 1 to 2 second hold at the top. This is gonna allow you to focus on what the body is doing, where your mechanics are with this movement, and get a ton of glute focused activity. I'm telling you, your glutes are gonna be blown up after this if you slow down your movement pattern and add a 1 to 2 second hold at the top. But now let's dive into our final and third exercise. So our last exercises include the sumo deadlift and the sumo squat. And these two are tricky because even when I started my lifting career, I thought these targeted the glutes when I didn't know that much about the anatomy and the function of the glutes, because when you perform them, you feel the glutes. So you're like, oh, I'm getting a lot of work out of these. But let's talk about this for a second. When the legs are spread out, generally speaking, what we're gonna have a lot of activity with is the adductors. And they're gonna predominantly take over a lot of the mechanics as we go through the eccentric and concentric portion of the movement. More specifically for the deadlift, we're gonna have a lot of adductors and quads off the floor. And then for the squat, we're gonna have quad and adductor and a little bit of glute as we move through the full range of motion. Now, when we talk about what we're trying to do with these exercises, if we're talking about targeting the glute max, we're not really getting like good, meaningful hip extension. Yes, we're extending the hips, but are we really leveraging them to their fullest extent and loading them accordingly by having the legs fully spread, loading in a vertical plane? Probably not. So 2 things to try swapping out instead. Instead of doing a sumo deadlift for glutes, try doing a dumbbell or kettlebell RDL with a band around the waist. This exercise is gonna come with a lot of benefits outside of just the glutes even. We're gonna get to train the glutes in a nice lengthened position. We're gonna get to target the hamstrings. And as we stand back up to that concentric movement pattern, that band is gonna be pulling against the glutes. So we are gonna get a little bit more meaningful glute and activity of that glute max. So this is a fantastic exercise all around. We're focusing on a lot of aspects of the posterior chain. Now, in replace of sumo squats, what I would recommend doing instead is a reverse lunge. And why I recommend this over a squat is number 1, generally with squats, we're gonna fatigue in other areas before we truly reach mechanical failure at the glutes. And by doing unilateral movements like the reverse lunge, we can focus a bit more on adapting a slightly more vertical shin angle, adapting a slightly more forward-leaning posture, lengthening that glute, and then focusing on what that glute is doing in a more scalable means. If we can get closer to mechanical failure with the reverse lunge and focus on creating a nice level of effort and intent with the glute itself, it's gonna be a slightly better means than using the sumo squat. So those are both viable options for replacements for the sumo squat and sumo deadlift. All right guys, that wraps up this exercise video talking about ineffective and effective glute exercises. Hopefully I made it perfectly clear in the intro of this video. If you do any of the ineffective exercises and you really enjoy them, keep doing them. I'm not gonna tell you not to, but if your goal is glute growth, strength, and just overall fullness and gains, being a bit more strategic with your exercise selection and paying attention to some of the mechanical details of the glutes can really pay off. But as always guys, if you have any questions on this video, hit me in the comments below and drop a like on the video, drop subscribe to the channel. I'll see you guys in the next one.